on August 9th around the wide world of tropics. Here's your tropical weather bulletin. The main features today are still the two typhoons in the Western Pacific, Typhoon Lekima, a Category 4, and Typhoon Krosa, a high-end Category 2 at this time, on day 221 of the year. 43 storms have formed so far around the world. Day 70 of Atlantic hurricane season, no systems are active right now or expected. In the Eastern Pacific, not marked on the screen, but two areas of interest could develop in the Eastern Pacific in the next few days. They've not been marked as invest, so our screen's still blank, 87 days into the season. And in the Western Pacific, we have the two typhoons, Lekima, which is now on its way to China, and Krosa, which is approaching Iwo Jima. In the Southern Hemisphere, nothing going on at this time. It's all quiet. The main feature is Typhoon Lekima, no surprise about that. We're giving it 140 miles an hour and a pressure of 918 millibars right now. Low pressure owing to its large size and coming off that earlier peak. 220 miles now from Taizhou, China, 26.3 north, 123.8 degrees east. As we take us through the forecast, it's now expected to go onto a weakening trend and strike China as a high-end Category 2 over the weekend, and could still deliver typhoon conditions to the Shanghai area before proceeding up the coast and delivering large amounts of rainfall to probably a huge chunk of that coastal area of China. Typhoon Krosa is located here, 110 miles per hour and a pressure of 940 millibars, enormous storm as well. It's 22.1 north, 141.1 east, 187 miles south of Iwo Jima, Japan, but not really moving very much at all right now. 2 miles per hour is the movement. Over the next few days, we expect it to track very close to Iwo Jima, over the weekend passing almost completely over it before veering off towards the northwest. We expect now on the model runs, the consensus is now favouring a more westward track, which might put Japan in the firing line next week. So here's some satellite imagery of Krosa, Lekima even, as it enters the East China Sea, and the wind shear values around 10 knots, so still fairly low at this time, and that will stay low again pretty much until landfall. Sea surface temperature is fairly warm too, but what it just typically happens when storms enter the East China Sea, they start to weaken. It's struggling with the eye wall, and we'll see what happens. The North Atlantic is looking very quiet at this time. No real disturbances to talk about at all across the basin. A few thunderstorms blowing up over in the Sargasso Sea and also in Hispaniola, but really very little going on. The Gulf of Mexico, some thunderstorms blowing up in Cuba, the Yucatan, and in southern Florida. The Eastern Pacific looks like this. You can see, I think, maybe one disturbance down there towards the bottom right. But the other one, the main one that we will be watching, is much further back near the Central American area, and that may well form into our next storm in the Eastern Pacific. The rest of the basin, as you can see, is quiet as a mouse. Krosa is located there, enormous, covering a large part of the basin. If you look towards the east there, you can still see what's left of Eric, which is popping up 30 mile an hour winds according to ASCAT. We'll keep an eye on it, and Lekima is quite clearly visible there. And some blowing up occurring just northwest of the Philippines too. That is from 96W. The Australia and South Pacific region is very quiet, ghostly right now. I suppose and suspect that most of the energy has been taken up by the Northern Hemisphere, and in the Indian Ocean you can see there, I think that might be what's left of 95B, which has now made it almost to the western coast of India and is still delivering some significant rainfalls there by the looks of things, possibly localized flooding. Sea surface temperatures are still increasing along the western coast of Mexico, the Eastern Pacific, into the Gulf of California, 30 degrees Celsius quite clearly there. The Gulf of Mexico is the same. If a storm enters that region or the Western Caribbean, those sea surface temperatures are very warm, and we could see a storm taking full advantage of that as we enter the later part of the month into September. Looking into the Indian Ocean, fairly warm, not as warm as it was earlier in the season. And in the Western Pacific, a lot of that 30-degree temperature waters has gone, just a few little spots, and the Gulf of Tonkin being the hot spot. So let's look at the floaters. This is Typhoon Lekima. It's moving fairly slowly towards the northwest. The Japanese islands got the main part of the storm. It sort of shifted and twisted and turned in between those islands. The main islands, Miyakojima and Ishigaki, I don't think got hurricane force winds, but they got hurricane force gusts. Typhoon Krosa looking like this. You can just about make out Iwo Jima towards the northern part of the screen, and some bands are affecting that island right now. I haven't checked, but I assume that it's had large amounts of rainfall, because I have been watching those satellite images from earlier on showing some significant rain bands moving through. So as of right now, this is where we're at. The next name in the Atlantic will be Chantal. In the Eastern Pacific, we're looking out for Henriette. In the Central Pacific, the next name on the list is Akoni. In the Western Pacific, it's the first time we're using Bailu. That's the next name on the list. It replaced Haiyan from 2013, followed by Podul. And in the North Indian Ocean, the next name on the list there is Hika. You can find Force 13's outlets, the website force13.com with the latest, our YouTube page, search Force 13 all in text, and subscribe if you haven't so far. And you can find our Facebook and Twitter platforms as well, search Force 13 all in text there too, and you can contact us on any of those mediums. That's all for now. We'll have another tropical weather bulletin tomorrow. You can also help the project become even better by becoming a patron. You can see more information about all the benefits involved by visiting patreon.com/Force13. With a special thanks to these people for being our most valued patrons this month. You can also check out our growing merch store so you can show Force 13's colours wherever you go. You can also find a link to our Discord server underneath this video in the description.